Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. It's been a while, but we are here for a Wrestlepalooza Weekend Kickoff show, and there is so much to talk about. I feel like since the last time we streamed, the wrestling world has had about a million huge stories, and we're going to be breaking down most of those on this stream as well as breaking down the card for Wrestlepalooza. We'll be talking predictions and all that good stuff as well on this fine weekend of pro wrestling. Of course, it's not the only big show going on this weekend, and we'll touch on that in a bit more detail very soon.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
All right, and some of you in the comments already not missing any of the action. Let's get to those straight away. Bella says we want Roman. Yeah, no Roman Reigns on this card. It's a big old card, but there's no Roman Reigns announced. Although there is a lot of rumors going around about big kind of surprises. So will we see Bella's wish come true? Bella also says we want Zilla Fatu. Now this is one that I think is also something that could be happening. Maybe not just yet. I do think he'll be showing up in WWE soon. But hey, again, if they're looking for surprises, that is a big one. Daniel Wiley's in the house. Always good to see you. Daniel also has another optional surprise for us here. He says, I think I think Jay turns heel, super kicks or spears Jimmy, and then stands next to both Braons. Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine? Look, I got to be honest. I hope it doesn't happen because I like it. Like, there's too much drama around the bloodline and the Usos. Like, they're finally back together again. I don't want it to happen. There was a few months back where I started to think around that Raw. Was it the Raw? It wasn't the Raw on Netflix, was it? It was Raw after Mania, when Jimmy and Jay and Sammy were all together, and I was like, something's going to happen. It felt so uncomfortable. If you go back and watch my watch along reactions, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But look, I hope it doesn't happen, but it does feel like something weird is going on with the Usos. We'll talk about that in a bit more detail later on. But Daniel, thanks for bringing that up because it's a big talking point this weekend because we could see a turn. It might not even be from Jay. It might come from Jimmy. Who knows? Either way, I think it's a risky move, but we'll get to that. AJ Lee and CM Punk to win the match as Bella, of course, referring to the intergender tag team match or the mixed tag team match, however you want to call it, because I don't think they're going to be wrestling opposite genders. We'll see. Maybe they do that, but I think it'll be male superstar versus male superstar and then female versus female as well. So we'll see how we go with that one. But yeah, CM Punk and AJ Lee, of course, in the ring together as the power couple facing off against WWE's other power couple in Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. Man, it's a good card. I've got to be honest. I'm really looking forward to the show itself. Again, you've joined us here on this weekend kickoff special stream. We're also trying to hit you with some content on the night as well, of course, with the build-up show. So if you're watching this on demand or on the build-up show, welcome. If you're watching live on Friday night, welcome to you as well. But yeah, what we're doing here is just because WWE aren't doing a kickoff show for this PLE doesn't mean we're not going to do one, right? We're going to get you hyped up and in the mood as we always do on these PLE weekends. Why do you think Jay speared LA Knight, says Daniel Wiley? Yeah, see, again, even the LA Knight mixture to it is just making it really confusing. I think LA Knight is at risk himself because he's a good guy, right? Everybody likes him, but his character is one of those that's a bit of a tweener almost, a bit like your kind of, Stone Cold Steve Austin anti-hero type thing, right? He kind of marches to the beat of his own drum, even if it doesn't make him an out-and-out good guy, but he gets good responses. So I think muddying the waters with someone like Jay, who's like massively over as just a pure babyface good guy, is a bit risky. Or is it because Jay's going to be doing the turn? And again, I don't think that's a good idea for many reasons at this moment in time anyway. I think it's a little bit too soon. But we'll touch on that later on in more detail as well. But thanks for your comments, guys. Keep them coming. We'll break down the card in detail. And also, we're going to be joined by Lucas in just a little bit as well. So he'll be giving us predictions for what is, again, a big weekend in pro wrestling. Of course, this show come about we all know why, right? Because AEW is all out this weekend and WWE wanted to counter program it. Even that is a bit of a messy situation. It's one of the least big stories from this weekend. That's how mad this weekend is in pro wrestling, and how mad weekends of pro wrestling seem to be lately, of all this kind of counter programming and just kind of big stories after big stories to kind of try and counteract each other as well. So one of the many things we'll be touching on throughout this stream. Daniel says, like Seth was an anti-hero type, I think, and Roman was, a bit similar there as well. I think just with LA Knight, it's a little bit risky because he kind of acts like a bad guy, right? So be doing that to a good, like when a good guy and a good guy don't see eye to eye, there's always a chance that the one that's not as pure babyface good guy or the one that's not as over ends up suffering because of it and becomes, people turn on him, and they have to become a heel. And that's my concern with LA Knight. So, because, like I say, he acts like a bad guy, but people like him, so he's a good guy, right? Whereas Jey Uso acts like a good guy until recently he started doing these strange things. But yeah, we'll get to that. Bella says the Rock return in the John Cena versus Brock Lesnar match. I mean, that would be massive if it did happen. But again, as I say, there's a lot of rumors going around that there will be big surprises on this show. Again, partly to counteract what's going on the opposite channel. Also, of course, it's the first time WWE are coming to you live from ESPN's new platform as well. So we'll be touching on how that impacts the show throughout the stream. Daniel thinks that the Brock Lesnar beats John Cena. I really don't know where to go with that one. I really don't. But look, you'll see by the end of this stream, someone will know what I think. Hopefully I do at least. Roman helps the Usos win the match. I think Roman could show up there. That's a good point, Bella. I mean, he's definitely been part of this feud, right, with Bron and Braun, so that would make a lot of sense actually, and be a nice little surprise. It doesn't necessarily have to be a heel turn or anything like that. Let's talk about the card itself, though. As I say, it's a big one we've got to break down. I'll get to my predictions as we make our way through the stream, and of course, as I said earlier on, Lucas is going to be joining us to give us his as well. But we've got John Cena, of course, versus Brock Lesnar, said to be the opening match on this show. We'll be predicting that in detail very, very soon. But it's a big match on this card, as is, in my opinion, the returning Usos, as far as a tag team together anyway. Jimmy and Jay, of course, one of the greatest to ever do it, facing off against one of the newest teams on the roster, Bron and Braun. Then we've also got Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre. This is a kind of WrestleMania-worthy match, if you ask me. I mean, yeah, they faced each other a lot already, but a WWE title match between these two heavy hitters in WWE's kind of modern era. Yes, please. Looking forward to that. We've also got Iyo Sky versus Stephanie Vaquer, of course, for the vacant Women's World Championship. So that's a really exciting one. Either way, we're going to get a new champion. So looking forward to seeing what happens in this one. And we've also got the match that many people are talking about and many even predict to be the main event. That is, of course, Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, husband and wife duo, going up against CM Punk and AJ Lee, of course, also husband and wife duo. Now, you join us live on a Friday night here for the Wrestlepalooza Weekend Kickoff show. And as things stands, Raw is in a book. So we'll talk about how the Raw impacts our kind of predictions and stuff like that. SmackDown, though, is just a few hours away. So if you're watching on demand or you're watching as part of the replay section on the build-up show, you'll know exactly what happens on SmackDown. And some of these things may have changed already. But there was said to be a match between Nia Jax, Jade Cargill, and Tiffany Stratton. It seems like they've been setting out for a while now, of course. But there are rumors going around that Tiffany may not be able to compete due to injury. Apparently wasn't able to join in on NXT Homecoming. And there are talks that maybe on SmackDown they will announce whether or not the match does take place at Wrestlepalooza. And I'm also hearing rumors that if it doesn't take place, it will be on next week's SmackDown. So again, at time of recording, we don't know. So we won't really predict that one, I don't think. I might ask Lucas his opinions on the feud and who he thinks might win it eventually. But again, not quite sure if that does link up with Wrestlepalooza itself. If it does, then that'll be cool because it'll be another interesting match on the card. Let's get to some more of these comments here. Lynette's in the house. Always good to have you, Lynette. Hope you're doing well. It says Brock Lesnar is going to win. It's a hard one. It's always hard to predict Lesnar matches. Lynette also thinks that the Usos will win. Bella is disagreeing with the Brock Lesnar predictions here. Says, I think Cena beats Brock Lesnar. Lynette is going for Cody Rhodes, and this time Bella agrees. Also goes for Cody Rhodes in the WWE title match. What else do we have here? Stephanie Vaquer is your pick in the women's world title match, says Lynette, and is also going for the returning AJ Lee with her husband CM Punk picking up the win in the married couple versus married couple feud. Randy turns on Cody. Big call there from Bella. It's something I've been expecting to happen for a long time, and I do think it's getting close. So maybe this is where we get it. Again, a lot of rumors about surprises going on this weekend as well. And Lynette, just one more comment before I bring Lucas into the fold, says, yeah, Tiffany got injured last Friday. Thanks to Nia Jax. Yeah, so sadly, it looks like that match will not be taking place at Wrestlepalooza. But again, this is what I'm saying before SmackDown. Who knows? Maybe come SmackDown, they do actually make it concrete. But rumors at the moment that it might get moved to next week instead. But as I say, it's a stacked card. Even if that's not on it, it is a shame to lose out on that match. It does therefore bring it back to the old classic of 5 matches on the PLE. That's the way they seem to be doing it these days. But it looks like they were close to going back to 6 on the cards. So maybe if that match isn't on it, they'll squeeze something else in its place. Or maybe I'm hearing rumors of even pre-show matches as well. And we'll dive into that with Lucas when he jumps on as well, because I know that's a subject he is very much passionate about, as am I, here on the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. We're a big fan of pre-show matches, pre-show matches. That's what I'm trying to say. But keep your comments coming, guys. Let me know what you think of Wrestlepalooza and all the huge stories around it. As I say, it's not just the card itself we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about all the breaking news stories that have come out around the WWE since we last went live. And trust me, there's quite a few of them. Now, what we're going to do is, as I say, bring in Lucas to the fold. So let's get him lined up and ready to go. And here he is. How you doing, mate?
Hi there, guys. How are we doing on the eve of Wrestlepalooza?
Yeah, man, it's a very, very exciting edition of the weekend kickoff show, mate. I'm looking forward to this. It's an event that didn't exist, not
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it's been sprung on us, and there are rumors flying around about its kind of importance. Constantly, essentially, and what they're going to kind of stack it with and stuff like that. Of course, I guess maybe before we dive into the card, we should probably talk about the lay of the land, really, and talk about how we got here in the first place. Again, we've touched on this when it was first announced, and we did our previous streams around Clash in Paris and our Raw and SmackDown streams from the European shows, of course. But now that we're getting closer to Wrestlepalooza itself, it's got a name. They brought back the old ECW name there, and of course they've decided to go not quite head to head, although they tried, because AEW have now moved time slot, which I think is a very wise move. But essentially, this is here to bash AEW as much as they can and take as much attention away from them as they can. And look, that's business, that's competition, don't get me wrong. And if anything, for wrestling fans, fantastic, because it gives us something to be excited for. And we've had plenty of weekends, it feels like, over the past year or two, where we're going, man, this is a crazy weekend for wrestling. But it tends to lean on the side of NXT versus AEW. This time, they're going full force, Lucas. They're going with WWE and bringing back an IP from the ECW days. What are your thoughts on the AEW WWE clash this weekend?
Yeah, it was interesting because obviously All Out had its own problems. There's nothing people kind of have forgotten in this whole kind of thing, which maybe is working in AEW's favour, is that obviously All Out for the last couple of years has suffered from being only a week removed from All In. And so this year they decided to fix that by obviously moving All Out, further away from that. And if you don't forget, last year as well, WWE, they moved SummerSlam earlier, and then they ran Bash in Berlin at the end of August, which was originally, was that the same? No, that was the same weekend as, no, it was weekend after
All In.
Yeah, after All In. But sorry, it would have been the slot that All Out would have been in.
Yeah.
But literally, in all this kind of Wrestlepalooza getting added and, the times changed and all that, people have forgotten that there was already a problem in this same time bit. And even if you go back years, WWE, they positioned Payback in September, in the end of August. It seems to be this little bit of the summer kind of into, the autumn. We're British guys, so it's the autumn for us. Where they just don't really know what to do yet. Like, because WWE is on a weird kind of phase usually in this stage, where they're just gearing up for Survivor Series, and obviously it used to be stuff like TLC and all that kind of stuff, but now it's more like the Christmas tour they do at the end of the year. So they gear, and this year obviously they added the John Cena retirement match to it. So it's all just very interesting how we've got the situation. In terms of your question, so I think this is a weekend where everyone wins, being deadly honest. I think obviously if they were to go head to head directly, I think that WWE would be the victor in terms of a lot of the metrics we're looking at with these things, and WWE still probably will be the victor, kind of overall. But I think in terms of this becoming the norm, I think it will continue. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen Tony Khan today saying he does plan, or AEW do plan to do like a big show in the spring of 2027.
I love that. I love that. I mean, look, the Saudi WrestleMania is something we'll touch on as well, because I do think Wrestlepalooza may kind of factor into that as well. In some ways, from some of the things I've heard people suggest recently. But I mean, the fact that, like you say, it doesn't feel like this is going away, and I wouldn't say that's Tony biting back so much. That's more Tony finding a void and thinking, you know what, I'm going to fill it. There is going to be a big show missing in the spring, because a great point I saw a few people kind of touch on is that when WrestleMania goes to Saudi Arabia, what's all the indies going to do? Like, they're not going with them, right? That's a big week for non-WWE companies, shows as well. So giving us a alternative to WrestleMania in the States, I say us like I'm over there, but I think that kind of creates the go-to place, like wherever that show is, whatever it is. I'm hearing rumors that might be Revolution. That could be where all these kind of independents go as well. I mean, he's also, of course, got ROH under his belt, which he famously decided to stop Supercard of Honor running on WrestleMania week, which was that was the main show that used to run outside of WWE back in the day, and now it's become such a huge part of the wrestling calendar. But they were kind of the first ones to do it. When AEW is formed, he said, "No, that's not what we're going to do. That's not our weekend." When he gets ROH under his kind of umbrella, he decides to move it away from it as well. For varying reason, I think you could kind of debate about. But I like this. I mean, I like the fact that they are kind of going toe-to-toe in some ways. Look, as you say, WWE probably will win, and that's not a slight from either of us, I don't think. WWE are the 70-year-old established company who rightly are, probably going to win this weekend when it comes to merch, when it comes to ratings, when it comes to ticket sales and whatever else. But that's nothing. That doesn't take anything away from what AEW are doing. I think the fact that WWE have done this in the first place tells us that even WWE take AEW serious to a level, because they can say all they want about that, but they never did this for TNA.
Yeah. But the thing is, it works both ways though, because something people need to remember from the original AEW days is that Tony Khan didn't want to oversaturate the pay-per-view market. He was very deliberate,
fashion
AEW
model,
would
wasn't
have
it?
fewer big events and would focus on television and a lighter schedule. But it's been kind of now got to the stage where AEW are basically doing monthly pay-per-views, and it's because of the competition with WWE. Like they literally cannot do TV in areas where WWE are coming and doing pay-per-views. Like, because you're only going to be on the losing end, and we have seen. Sadly, it was very sad after obviously the success of All In over here, All In Texas, and Forbidden Door over here. With big crowds, and then them obviously going back to much smaller crowds stateside, and a lot of it is factoring in the fact that WWE are running, super shows or live event. Well, don't necessarily live events anymore, but pay-per-views basically in the same territories. In terms of obviously what might happen around kind of Indie Mania, I guess we'll call it, for 2027. I don't think they run the same weekend though. Still, I think they probably run the next weekend, the weekend before.
Yeah, I do as well.
I mean, the time difference and the fact that WWE, they really load. It's WrestleMania week, as we know now, so they will load obviously everything there. WWE could throw a kind of little bone to the States where they could still maybe host Hall of Fame over in the States, potentially even NXT over in the States.
True.
So there is still, you know, kind of consolation prize, I guess.
Yeah.
That could exist, but I think with the price tag that the Saudis have obviously paid, I think they probably do want and do deserve the full shebang. Because again, take away obviously people's emotional feelings towards the country and the political kind of climate that we're in. They're paying a lot of money for the show.
Yeah, just from a transactional point of view of a customer and what they get, you'd imagine they're going to get the full, the full whack.
But in terms of what can happen in 2027, I think obviously that'll be something which we'll have to explore as and when things go. But I think absolutely someone like Tony Khan is obviously in a position to do things, should do things. But then, like I said, WWE also do have TNA under their own umbrella as well. So could we see something where TNA do something, along those lines also? And obviously, as far as the other independent promotions, or even if there's a collab or something that goes on, it's very exciting times. But I genuinely think that we probably need a whole episode based on the Saudi Mania stuff. But in terms of where we are this weekend, anyway, with Wrestlepalooza, and it's going on the same weekend as AEW's All Out, this is mirroring almost like we saw in July when we had, obviously, All In, kind of in the same weekend as such a weird weekend with Evolution and
Saturday night's main event.
Saturday night's main event match. Which, if we're kind of doing point scoring, I guess you could say AEW did win that one. I know obviously WWE probably did get a lot of money through the Peacock deal. But again, that's where, to be fair, that weekend was integral to where we are today. Because without that weekend existing and them adding Evolution to SummerSlam, this would not be the historic first night pay-per-view on ESPN. Which obviously is their new deal, which again has come with its whole in America anyway.
And this is another big story, surrounded again, as it came on air saying, look, we're going to get to the card, don't worry. But there are so many big things going on in WWE, and this show is like a kind of anchor point for a lot of them, this is the first. I mean, again, a lot of these points will touch on what it could mean for the show itself. But as you say, WWE got to ESPN, I believe, is a five-year deal. Even the way they're promoting this show, I mean, we saw what they did when they went to Netflix, right? And again, as you kind of touched on there, it's a shame for those in the States having to have 1 million subscriptions to watch WWE. But it does create this excitement and this buzz. And, I've seen Triple H has been on a lot of the kind of panel shows that WWE, that ESPN do, and they've done some extra podcasts and their own kind of extra pre-shows this weekend as well. ESPN are putting a lot into this. So, this being... And again, this is a deal that's supposed to start in a few months' time. And all of a sudden, nope, we're starting early and we're bringing back an old IP to do it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it seems very much that it fell into place. And I don't know what came first. Like, was it the case of they saw the opportunity to go head-to-head with, obviously, AEW on that, also counter-program, as they keep calling it, AEW on that same date. And then they realised there was a clause that they could get out of their contract with Peacock because of obviously doing 2-night events and adding Evolution and all that kind of stuff. And then went, right, we're just going to go kind of, full steam ahead on this. And it's not obviously knowing what came first. But it just to me feel that they were always going to counter program AEW on that weekend, regardless. Whether it would have been an NXT event potentially, or just like I said, just if they did like a payback again, like they've done in previous years.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something which they very much do nowadays. But in terms of this epicness of obviously being on ESPN, it does feel big. And I think we need to remember that we've been here before with a lot of stuff, and obviously most recently the Netflix premiere and how that's gone, and what WWE have somewhat kind of failed, kind of historically with, is maintaining that momentum like past the initial deliverance.
Yeah.
And I guess it's easier with this, you could argue, because we're not going to have to do this every single week. Don't have a pay-per-view every single week. Well, for now anyway. But with like Netflix Raw, it was a case of to do the first one. It was a big spectacle. You have like all your big names, big stars, big moments, then the week after that, it's just reducing and diminishing returns. And it's just like when they started the deal with bringing back, well, the original Matchman event, when they brought that back in the 2000s, and they just kind of lost interest with it, and it they lost the contract. Same with Superstars and WGN. First episode, John Cena, Undertaker, Triple H on. Then within like a year, 2 years, it was pretty much the lower mid carders, kind of getting on. So I think that they are throwing a lot at this show, and it's been very, very interesting that the build hasn't really been much to do with the television product. It's been more just to do with how huge this show is. And obviously with how Triple H is speaking and how kind of everyone in the company is speaking, it feels very much like they are treating this like a really big deal.
Yeah, I mean, the quote that is going around from Triple H is expect spectacle, expect surprises, expect to have a lot of fun, and ESPN is going to deliver. That was him on one of those ESPN shows. Now, don't get me wrong, as you say, we've been here before. The Fox deal was another one that went like that, as you described it as well. But this is different. I mean, Peacock, like they can keep it fresh because, these are kind of spaced out and they are the bigger shows anyway. And this one being the first, I think the first Raw on Netflix was amazing. And I do think we're going to get something quite special with Wrestlepalooza as well. I still find it wild that they've just chose a name like Wrestlepalooza. But I think that's a good name. I think it's a name that ECW use well themselves. And I touched on it a little bit earlier on. And I want to get to some more surprises and stuff like that. I see the comments rolling in. We'll get to those in a bit, guys. Keep them coming. And again, we're going to break down the card and predict every match very soon as well. But I've seen some people suggest that Wrestlepalooza could be shopped around as a replacement WrestleMania. This has come out of nowhere, this show. But if they... It strikes me as interesting that they only in the past few years have started using terms like wrestling and wrestle when they couldn't. They were never going to turn it into sports entertainment mania, although I reckon Vince had a few dreams about that. But Wrestlepalooza is kind of weirdly, I know it sounds silly to say, but sounds similar to WrestleMania in some ways and could be seen as that if they promoted it. Now, in my opinion, if they were going to do that, if they shopped around Mania globally and then used another show in the US, or did the reverse, kept WrestleMania there and gave everybody, built up a show, because I think some people think they might build up WrestleMania to the Wrestlepalooza to give that to other places in the future. But mate, it's 40 odd years of WrestleMania now. You can't just do that. So the only way you could really do it is SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and Royal Rumble, or, and this is probably something they're not going to do, but what I would like them to see them do is do it with Starrcade, because Starrcade was a WrestleMania type show. I mean, they did that house show a few years ago under that umbrella as well. But what are your thoughts on Wrestlepalooza just becoming a new fixture in the calendar and it not just being a one-off?
I'm fine it being a new fixture. I mean, this has been interesting the past few years. We've had a lot of kind of one-off events. Last year we had Bad Blood during this time period, pretty much, obviously. And we've seen a lot of stuff kind of not be rigid, in this. I mean, even like going after Wrestlepalooza, we will be in Crown Jewel, which has been a Saudi event. Now going to take place in Australia, and then vice versa. Australia held a Super Showdown, and that went to Saudi. So we have seen a lot of this stuff kind of shuffled about. I don't actually think we've had like a consistent, pay-per-view calendar probably since COVID days, I think.
Yeah, I'd say definitely since the Vince kind of change of regime, because it felt at first like this is changed because it's how Triple H wants it, but then, like I say, since then, nothing has been the same. No two years have been the same, or even close.
Castle's lost a castle.
Exactly.
Next year, apparently going to a Coliseum.
Oh, is it really?
Also broke this week.
I didn't even see that story.
But Italy will get a PLE next year.
Oh, no, I did hear that Italy was going to get one.
Yeah.
Is that related to Clash then, do you think?
A lot of people are saying it's going to be like Clash at the Coliseum or Clash.
Oh, I like that. And because I heard it's the early part of 2026 as well. Like it's
first.
I mean, there's not a lot of slots you can fit that into, so it would be interesting to see where it is used.
Maybe May, I don't know. I mean, maybe I guess it'd be hard because obviously you have to imagine with again. Well, the next year. Sorry, I'm in wrong years. WrestleMania is obviously in the States next year. So I guess it would make sense for them to maybe do similarly to how they did with Backlash.
Yeah.
Lock that in
But then you lose Backlash itself. I mean, again, as we've just touched on, they're not afraid to move away from tradition these days. So
yeah, and we do see smaller gaps between some of these shows, like when they've done like as a preview when they've done Bash in Berlin, or they've done certain things. It's only like 2 weeks. They're happy to go like just a week, 2 weeks.
True.
After another PLE, so you could see a situation where Backlash happens, and then 2 weeks later is, you know, I'm going to say Clash of Coliseum. Let's get that into the world. It's a really good name.
Let's make that a thing.
You know, so yeah, it is interesting. But in terms of back to thinking about Wrestlepalooza, I think absolutely they cannot replace WrestleMania in the United States with Wrestlepalooza, or with anything. To be fair, even if they decide, okay, WrestleMania is going to Saudi. But you know the States are still getting SummerSlam, and that's the big one. I think even that's just
people will know. Yeah, they'll devalue the name of WrestleMania, which is the point of why they've shopped it around in the first place. Again, this is a podcast we could do in itself another day, but just to briefly touch on that, you know, I've mentioned in the chat a few times and on streams in the past. For me, they already did that with WrestleMania Backlash and SmackDown WrestleMania and all that kind of rubbish as well. So I'm worried that we are going in that direction, but we'll have to see. These things do tend to change year on year these days, it seems anyway. Bringing it back to this year and this Wrestlepalooza, as I say, it seems like at least this time round, they're going big with it. Now, are we going to get all the big surprises? I don't know. If I'm honest, I think we might get some because normal PLEs have been getting big surprises lately. So I think something like this, on a weekend where they're clashing with AEW and a weekend where they're going big with ESPN, we could get them. We've touched on a few already in the comments, but I see Bella is flying in the comments here with a few of them. Some of these I think are likely. I'm going to quickly go through these just to kind of bring them out. Some of these are likely, some are not, in my opinion. But Bella says Bianca Belair returns. We definitely could see something like that happen. Paige returning could be happening as well. One that's definitely not happening. Wishful thinking here from Bella is John Moxley, a big AEW name, of course. LA Knight potentially turning heel to join the Vision. I think that's an interesting take. We'll touch on that later on when we do break down the card itself, because again we touched on a little bit of the Jey Uso issue with LA Knight, but that's an interesting take there. Kevin Owens' return, of course, got that injury, so hopefully we'll be getting that soon. I don't think we'll get anything like that at Wrestlepalooza, though. The MFTs helped the Bron brothers win the match. That's a crossing over of storylines there, but I guess it kind of makes sense with the Usos, so that's possible. Even Paige debut on the main roster and joins the Vision. That'd be an interesting way to use Ethan Page as well. A lot of people think he's more likely to join up with Chelsea Green, but we'll see where we go with that one. Keep the comments coming, guys. We love them. And again, I know you've sent me those there, Bella, but because we did ask about predictions for huge kind of storylines coming out of Wrestlepalooza, because it does seem like we are going to get some surprises on this show. But let's break down the card match by match. Before we do that, as I say, we are recording this a few days removed from the Go Home Monday Night Raw, so we'll talk about our thoughts on some of the stories there, but before SmackDown has hit. So if you're watching this on demand, or if you're watching it on the replay section of the build-up show and something's changed drastically, apologize. But as of time of recording, there are rumors going around there that Tiffany Stratton is injured and therefore will not be competing at Wrestlepalooza. The match seemingly was going to be Tiffany, Jade Cargill, and Nia Jax. There are still some kind of reports out there that maybe on SmackDown it will be announced for Wrestlepalooza, and there's other reports saying that if anything it might be moved to next week's SmackDown. Go ahead, Lucas.
Get with this is obviously we've actually had this 2 months in a row now. Obviously at Thingamajig, at the Paris one, Clash in Paris. Obviously we meant to have Seti Vaquer take on.
Of course, yeah.
And then that match didn't happen, and they didn't replace it. So it'll be interesting seeing what happens with this, because if there are going to be 6, like surely just book another match. There's a lot of matches that I feel that could happen in place. And yeah, I never understand why they don't all, just do a number one. It depends on the injury, I guess. Obviously, took a nasty fall last week. I know they've got obviously a very heavy concussion protocol there at the moment, and obviously that absolutely makes sense. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying to them to rush that by any means, as you want obviously the wrestlers to remain as safe as possible until they can wrestle for as long as possible. But I don't understand why. I don't understand, like, if it does happen, there's not a replacement, and I never understand that choice.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, at Clash, we just end up having an hour first match, basically.
So this one obviously wasn't advertised, right? Yeah. Although there are apparently T-shirts out there with the match graphic on.
Okay.
But So I guess you can get. They haven't kind of not replaced something officially, but seeing as it kind of clearly was leaning that way, you could. There was the slot there, even if they didn't promote it. The slot was clearly ready for them to use. So I'm with you. I think putting something else in there. I mean, on SmackDown again, we're just doing this before SmackDown. You've got the US title match, of course, with Carmelo Hayes and Sami Zayn that's been announced for the show. So that's something that could have been on the show as well. Who knows? Maybe that will end the shenanigans and it will have a rematch on it. But you mentioned something interesting when we were chatting off there about rumors around pre-show matches. So before we get into the main card itself, what have you been hearing, and any matches that you think in particular could end up on the pre-show?
So allegedly what people have been saying is that obviously their pre-show for this is starting at 10 p.m. and is actually going to go into what would most likely, well, unless AEW want to run really long, would be at least the last half an hour to hour.
Right.
AEW. And the theory is that they want to actually compete. They actually want to put something
with a free show, with a free match on YouTube. Yeah. Why not?
And it tries. Obviously, they had these 2-hour kickoff shows for ages now, but the one of the rumors was that they were going to put a pre-show match on, and the pre-show match that has been talked about was the women's tag title match, which was Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss against Chelsea Green and not Piper Niven, the other one, Alba Fire.
Alba Fire, yeah.
Has been one that's been discussed for that position. So now this is what, going back to my point previously, if a Tiffany Stratton match is not happening on a PLE, then this tag match then should have just move, in my opinion, to that slot on the PLE. Because if it's going to be happening anyway, it was meant to have one on the pre-show, you may as well bump it to the main show, particularly as it involves championships. And then potentially even, you've got, like I said, you've got the men's and the women's US titles, which could go on to the pre-show, if this rumour is true. But I also get a feeling that with it being ESPN, they are going to lean even heavier into the kind of talk format.
And the show itself as well, rather than a YouTube freebie.
Like they've, everything has kind of led to this point, with this. But I kind of do hope we do see the pre-show matches come back. I think that there's a lot of stories that are not getting time. A lot of people are not getting time. A lot of championships that aren't getting time. And you've got 2 hours of people talking, which I don't know if that's necessary in that possible way.
Says us as we do a podcast, but no, I know where you're coming from. It's a different format. I mean, hey, we're not going kayfabe with it, so it's a bit more interesting, I'd like to think. Speaking of which, when we are in the hours getting closer to the show itself, of course, every PLE weekend, we like to hit you with not only this weekend kickoff show, but also the build-up show on the night of a PLE as well. So make sure you tune into that. We'll have a replay of some of our content from this week leading up to it, including this show. So if you're watching this on that show, hi again. But we'll also aim to give you a live section as well. So please stay tuned. And these are some of the most fun streams we do, because not only are we hyping up and getting excited for PLEs, they kind of get a little bit chaotic, especially with the last minute rumors as well. Right, let's move into the actual card then, Lucas. We've talked about what might kind of be added to it, what might happen before it hits the airwaves. But there is a official card out there at the moment, of course, and there is also one match placed in an order already, and of course that is the opening match. It was announced on the Pat McAfee show that Wrestlepalooza in Indianapolis will be opening with John Cena versus Brock Lesnar. Seeing as that's the case, Lucas, I figured we should start with our predictions of this match first as well. But first of all, before we get into predicting it, what are your thoughts on the feud overall and its placement on the card?
The feud's been a bit weird. I mean, obviously, Brock returned at SummerSlam, and this was a result of them wanting to obviously have a big moment coming out of that weekend, and that made sense. But then Brock decided not to appear for, in terms of storyline, Brock didn't appear for a number of weeks, and allowed John Cena to have his little feud and match with Logan Paul. Didn't bother appearing at Clash in Paris, and then showed up to F5 in 1 week. And then that's basically all we got. We haven't heard Brock's motivation, and I guess Brock's strongest point isn't he's talking, so not especially in front of the crowd. And then we got that weird segment with R-Truth, which while was fun, it was still a bit like, well, this guy's meant to be a bit of an ass kicker. And then
it was misplaced in this feud. I mean, the archery thing's been a massive disappointment anyway. What he's doing is good, but it should be happening right now. I mean, a lot could be said about the John Cena heel turn, of course, itself. But then you got Brock Lesnar not really portraying the role that he did a few years ago, where this would have made a little bit more sense. We've seen Brock have similar segments still as a heel, but kind of be a little bit fun with it. That's not the position we're in with Brock Lesnar at the moment, not just because of the on-screen stuff, but of course how people feel about him outside of the WWE's kind of production as well. So it was a bit of an odd way to continue to build the feud, but at the same time I understood it in some aspects. But yeah, I agree with you. I think the build's been a bit odd. Yeah, he weren't going to be around all that time, so the Logan Paul thing was actually quite good and took our kind of attention away from it a little bit. But the only way it felt like this could have been built is because of what's been going on, is that, Lesnar shows up in F5s and then shows up in F5s and whatever else. And it's also made the match, in my opinion, quite hard to predict, because I think Lesnar matches are always hard to predict anyway, because you just don't know what position they want him in. This is a man that, for no reason, broke the streak. But at the same time, it is Cena's last run. It's their last match together. Does he need to win? And then the argument could be, I mean, he's no spring chicken, Brock Lesnar, but technically speaking, he's sticking around after this. John Cena isn't. So maybe Lesnar needs to look good again. It's weird that we're saying that in 2025, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, when Lesnar returned the original time, obviously back in 2012, and he ended up losing to Cena, didn't he? He had a massive return against Cena. It came out F5'd him. They did a few weeks of weird, promos with it, and then the feud kind of went to, Extreme Rules. Where
did Lesnar not just destroy him at Extreme Rules? Or am I thinking? Or was it SummerSlam when he did Suplex City? Was that the same feud?
The original Extreme Rules one was the one where he did the jump over the ring ropes and. The crazy spot where he jumped over he ended up doing he went to something where John Cena was on the apron. He ended up landing his head, but he beat him up a lot actually.
Right, yeah,
battered him, but Cena got the win.
Oh, okay.
The whole reason was because it was the weekend that they caught Bin Laden, and so they wanted Cena to kind of do the announcement at the end.
Was that the same? Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
wow. It's the same show. The compromise to a permanent end, or whatever it is he says. But
they had him to promo at the end of it, basically, and that's the reason why they changed the result.
Wow.
And then we've got the infamous Suplex City at SummerSlam, which followed obviously Lesnar beating the streak and all that. But so where we are now, I think Lesnar does need to win this. I think he lost to Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam 2023, was his last outing in the WWE. He lost that. He lost that they had a trio of matches that were very well received, to be fair. And I think it was a big kind of passing of the torch, not so much passing the torch, but kind of like a kind of proving point for Cody. Like this kind of meant he had definitely made it in terms of the main event scene in WWE, and I think that's where it was. And I think, I think with the fact that Lesnar's going to be going longer in the company than John Cena, even though, it's not going to, we can have to imagine it's not going to be by much, maybe a year, 2 years down the line. But I think the fact that he is just returning as well, Cena just beat Logan Paul. He was champion for most of the year. He main evented most shows of the year.
True.
I'd imagine, and I think it would actually add an interesting arc to his final. It's literally single-digit dates now, isn't it? Final handful of dates of he needs to get that one final win. Essentially, he wants to prove himself, and he's got time to do that. Because obviously, he's got the show in his hometown in November. He's got NXT in November as well, Survivor Series, and obviously what will end up being his final match. At the end of the year. So I think there's actually more that can be done with Cena losing than Brock losing. I guess Brock losing would open up. I think Brock losing only makes sense if he's imminently going to go into something bigger, where he can go on he can be let to go on a rampage, and basically beat someone up.
Yeah.
But with him obviously A being part-time and B with all the stuff that's most likely going to come and overshadow a lot of his stuff that he might do, I don't know whether we're going to see him again until WrestleMania season after this.
Yeah, I would agree with you, actually. The more I think about it, I think Lesnar's probably going away for a bit because, look, bringing him back again, everybody, it's been talked about quite a lot, but of course, the controversy surrounding that and people's kind of discomfort with that is a big part of how people, are talking about this feud. But the one thing that's kind of not winning people over, but kind of distracting it at least a bit for WWE is the fact it is John Cena, and people want to show respect to John Cena and his final run and all this kind of stuff. And as we start winding down, if Lesnar goes into another feud, not many other people on a roster will hold that weight, So it's kind of it does feel like he's back for this feud, and then maybe it's WrestleMania or maybe it's Royal Rumble, but or they find a big story for him once things have maybe, I guess calm down. It's a bit weird term to use for this kind of thing, but
I think you got that, but you've also got the fact that they're gonna have to start building a Survivor Series, which, if it does follow the format we've seen in the last couple of years, pretty much the main events are going to be the 2 War Games matches.
Yeah, and he's not needed in that.
He's not needed in that. He won't be doing that, and then there's no PLE obviously in December. Other than the Satellite Nightmare event, which obviously they consider it to be on the kind of similar level, but again, that's a whole different thing. There's nothing really for him to sink his teeth into until that Mania season.
Yeah,
they will just determine whether do we have the Brock who wants to get his belt back, so he goes to the Rumble kind of route, and then maybe wins it. I don't know at this rate. Because I have to imagine, to be fair, Brock Lesnar would be a big part of the Saudi Rumble show.
True. Yeah, that's the point.
So, but yeah, like I don't see anything for him, because he is one of those again. So this actually links into its placement. Like Brock is, in my opinion, I do believe he has that thing where he just has that thing of like, if I'm not going to be on last, I want to go on first. Yeah. And I've maintained this belief for ages, going back to like WrestleMania 35 actually, when he went on first against Seth Rollins, and obviously the girls' main event. I just think it's that he understands the business side of wrestling business like so well, I think, Brock, and I think he understands that. Look, like the main event's the main event, and that will always be like the biggest match of the show. But if you're not going to be the main event, being on first is probably the best spot to be. Like, because it's like people will turn, even if you just like you turn. What ESPN are hoping on for is people obviously they're pumping a lot of promotion, blah blah, and then people might just turn it on, not knowing what to expect, and then they're going to go, "Oh, I remember Brock Lesnar. I remember John Cena. Let me just stick around for a little bit, and watch whatever they're going to do." But they're not going to know. If you're an old fan, like you might not know people like your Seth Rollins is,
Yeah, no, it's true.
So I think his card position is actually also good. I think potentially because of other stuff I think is going to come. My prediction for this match, by the way, is that Gunther returns and has a showdown with Brock afterwards.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting because that is where he could go next. But
yeah,
I guess it doesn't have to be straight away, right? It could be set in the season, like they did with Goldberg. To be fair,
typical thing we've seen happen quite a lot now, where they will just do that moment, and then it will just set for a little bit, and then they revisit it when they need to. Similarly, to be fair, what happened with Gunther and Goldberg.
Yeah, that's
Goldberg had their showdown months before they ended up having their match.
It could do that, and it could lead into John Cena versus Gunther as well. He could have a face to face with Lesnar. Lesnar walks out, and Gunther attacks John Cena. Because John Cena's not really spent too much time around the up and comers. I say up and comer like he isn't the main event himself, but someone he hasn't had massive feuds with in the past, essentially.
Yeah,
so that'd be interesting. I mean, those characters kind of seem to gel. I'd imagine would gel together as well. So, I mean, that's the interesting thing about this as well. Like usually we predict a booked PLE by trying to imagine what the next few months are going to be booked like. I reckon they'll do one more of these, or I reckon they'll get their win back.
Now, though, because we've got an international show in Crown Jewel.
Yeah.
Survivor Series.
The format's so different. And with these guys, especially because, again, Lesnar's someone that pops in and pops out, and Cena's not there for long. And we genuinely still don't really know who his last few opponents are going to be. It really is up in the air. So it does make this...
waste them on rematches. He's already had 2 against Cody.
Yeah.
We need to see 2 against Brock.
Oh, 100%.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not in the camp of thinking that he shouldn't face Brock. I think, this tour has been a real mixed bag of stuff. And obviously, potentially when we get through the other end of this, there probably will have to be a podcast about this, about the heel run, the championship run, the babyface part that we're getting now, the greatest hits we've had, and some of the misses. But yeah, I don't think we need. I think I'm fine with. If it's a one and done, and if we do make at least attempts to get someone else over with this, because otherwise it falls into very early. The Saudi shows very early on when they're just like, oh, we're going to get Triple H and Randy Orton, but Triple H is not a full-time wrestler, so it's not going to go anywhere afterwards. You're going to get DX against like Brother Destruction, but none of these guys want to wrestle full-time anymore, so it's not going to mean anything afterward. It's just a random exhibition match, and that for me is a separation of the difference. I think if coming out of this we do get like a stare down, we do get Gunther involved, we do get a signal of okay, we are going to go to Gunther versus Cena or Gunther versus Brock down the line. It's like, okay, we've made a reason for this booking existing, and yeah, like the Cena stuff. Obviously, as we are winding down the numbers, we're looking at, and it's very weird. But again, another thing that's very weird in this is that he's only doing 2 episodes of television in November. There's nothing in October.
I mean, I guess
there's no television now until November for him. He's literally doing Wrestlepalooza, Crown Jewel, and then Monday Night Raw on the 10th of November in his hometown. There's nothing.
Yeah, I guess. Look, he's not a heel anymore, so he doesn't have to stick. Like if as a heel he went, actually, I'll do a few more. That would, when he was counting down, would have made sense. Technically, he could add a few more if he wanted to. There might be a scenario, but it wouldn't be as kind of strange as it would be when he was a heel counting down. But as things stand, like he's not there to really to promote his last ever match, which you could argue doesn't need much promo. It's John Cena's last ever match. It's like the year that Cena showed up to WrestleMania without Undertaker having shown himself for a while. It could even be quite similar to that. But man, it's going to be an interesting few months, and look, we'll keep covering it on this channel as we've been doing for the whole of his retirement year so far. And again, as you say, once it's all said and done, it would be great to revisit it with a kind of fresher head as well. But bringing it back to his match here at WrestlePalooza, I think I'm in agreement with you. It looks like we're both going for a Brock Lesnar victory here, and potentially a surprise return from Gunther showing up to either have a little bit of a stare down with Lesnar, or maybe even do that and attack John Cena. So we'll have to see there. But that's one of the many possible surprises on this card, Lucas. Again, we'll kind of touch on some others rumor-wise as we head through the rest of them. Christopher Leclerc's in the houses. Brock Lesnar versus John Cena will open I see it's a WrestleMania there. WrestlePalooza. That's official, and it's also the reason why we've started off with predicting that one on this show as well. Christopher's gone the opposite side, though. He said John Cena wins this. Look, I've talked myself into it now. I mean, I say Lucas has talked me into it, really. I'm going with a Brock Lesnar win for this one here. I don't think Cena needs to win. But hey, I've been surprised many times about John Cena wins when he didn't need them. Let's move into the next match. Another one I'm really excited for. It's the Usos, Jimmy and Jay back together once again versus Bron and Braun. Now, the interesting thing about this is it's not just about the returning Usos. I think that in itself is a cool dynamic. Yes, a few months back they wrestled together as well, but I love the Usos. I'm really excited to see them work together again and work with a new team that are up and coming and an important factor, part of Monday Night Raw. Although now we're leaning into territory I'm not too sure about, Lucas, and that is Jay, I should say, acting a little bit strange. Now, the thing for me is, and I touched on this earlier on when some of the comments were asking us our opinion on it when we first came on there, but there are two sides to this. Number one, LA Knight. I think if he's not going to be turned heel, and there was a great comment earlier on from Bella saying that he might be turning heel here, which we could touch on very soon. If he's not, then I said this over the past few months, I should say as well. Him being a tweener type character, acting like a heel but being a beloved guy and actually a babyface is great, but it doesn't work well when it goes up against someone that's either more over or a more traditional, red hot babyface, basically. And that's what Jey Uso is. So having him have a little bit of butting heads with another babyface is risky with a character like Jey Uso. Then on the other side of it, Jey Uso's being a bit weird, right? He's acting a little bit like not a heel, but like, yeah, maybe that's not what a babyface should be doing, right? And I'm really concerned that they could be turning Jay here. I don't think they will. I think really, in my heart of hearts, they won't do it because he sells a lot of merch, and that's the way they should keep it, if I'm honest. Look, there will be a time where it really runs its course, and there will be a time where I think, you know what, now's time to pull the trigger, and it'll be exciting. But I really don't want them to have a wasted heel turn here with Jey Uso. So I'm leaning more into this potentially being a LA Knight heel turn, which maybe could put a different kind of rocket on him to what many of us expected. Him maybe becoming world champion as a babyface just hasn't happened. I think he's been knocking on the door every now and then. And I do also see potential risk in him becoming a heel, but again, his character kind of leans into it anyway. So before we get into, I guess, the result of the match and the Brons in the match, what are your thoughts on the Jey Uso, LA Knight, and kind of Jimmy Uso mix-up that we've got going on here as well?
Yeah, so I think you've got a lot of factors in this, like you say. I think that, in my opinion, turning the Usos on each other would just be an absolute waste of time.
100%.
Particularly because, did they not see their WrestleMania match? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I know obviously it's not fully their fault. A lot of that was obviously, what was produced, but come on, like, it wasn't good. And we've kind of come out of that so far where they've already, they got back together at Survivor Series last year. We got back together on the tour over here last year and this year. Like, we've already kind of out of that, and I think it would just take us back into something which it ended. And I think LA Knight's probably the bigger factor here. I think I kind of think I think Triple H in particular would want to position him as a tweener. I believe that he'd still want him to be kind of babyface enough for shift merchandise and t-shirts, and if needed, to go into a program immediately with like Seth Rollins, but villain enough so that they can get some fresh matches out of him facing people like Jay and Jimmy. And even Punk on the roster. So I think that might be where we go down. Yeah, the fact that A Knight's not got a match as PLE makes you think that, yes, he's going to have to get involved in something. And this one would make sense for him to do so. And so I'll link it into actually who I think will win the match. I think the people who will win the match are the Brons. I think that they need the win more than the Usos do. But I can also see WWE want to do the kind of, sending people home happy kind of thing, and the Usos just winning. But I think they do need to start racking up some wins for the Brons. Something else which I think has happened in this is it does feel a bit like Bron Breakker is kind of backtracking from what initially felt like, this is actually a really strong spot for him, and potentially down the line we'd get him turning on Rollins, or vice versa, and obviously, feuding with Rollins over the World Championship. It now would just feel very out of place, which is bonkers, because the talent that he's got just isn't translating to, isn't going with the booking.
I think
lose all the time.
Wow, I've kind of lost his name there. Wait, Bronson Reed is the better looking of the two at the moment. I think he's coming out looking a lot stronger. I think that feud with Roman Reigns, of course, that could factor in here as well. We could see a Roman Reigns return. Of course, he's got unfinished business as well. I mean, that is, I know you shake your head there, but technically speaking, big name showing up on ESPN is a possibility there as well. As I said earlier on, Bella said LA Knight turning heel and joining the division. I do think it might see LA Knight coming in. I think if the division didn't involve Seth Rollins, I could see it. But him being in this feud, as you say, it feels like Bron Breakker's getting a little lost in the shuffle. LA Knight shouldn't be in the shadow of someone like Seth Rollins. I mean, just from his might work alone.
In Triple H's head anyway, would be the better fit, because that way he wouldn't have to join the division, but he still kind of hates Rollins, and rightly he should, because he's by those guys enough. And yes, obviously, I'm familiar with the whole if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. That just happens quite a lot. But I think, because of how grounded and realistic things are nowadays, it makes it very difficult for us to imagine that a character would kind of betray all their kind of beliefs to then do something like this. But then, like I said,
well, I don't know, John Cena, Seth Rollins himself with Bronson Reed.
Yeah, but then we've seen, and then even more recently with Sami Zayn, obviously, deciding that he didn't want, he really didn't want to leave Raw to go and have a guaranteed World Championship match, but then left to go to bloody feud with the Samoans again. A few months down the line, just because.
So where do we go with LA Knight then if he does get involved here? If it's not a straight up heel turn, but just, I mean, him clashing with fellow babyface Jey Uso not potentially damaging, or does it become a tag team thing where he kind of needs to align himself with a bad guy in order to do that? I mean, what is the purpose of what's going on?
I think we're going to see this match and potentially the Rollins tag and stuff lead very much and act very much as a setup for Survivor Series. I think we're already there. Sorry, Australia, but I think you're going to get a house show essentially for Crown Jewel. There's no matches announced. There's no feuds announced. I guess they have got Rhea as a kind of hometown kind of pop, so to speak, but they've done that already. There's nothing really for that show. They will just probably do a couple of rematches from Wrestlepalooza, and I guess John Cena is announced for it, but doesn't mean he has to wrestle. I guess he might have to do a promo.
Gosh, I hope that's not the case, because I felt like even last time they got slighted a little bit as well. But look, we'll see. I mean, look, does LA Knight versus Jey Uso become a match at Crown Jewel?
Potentially. I think very much that a lot of this will be setting up stuff like for Survivor Series, and maybe that's again positioning LA Knight as a tweener, even if it's just for a little bit, could make sense, because then you could get that match at Crown Jewel and then flirt with him being the whole like what team will he join at War Games, and then if they want to turn him full on villain, he can turn at obviously Survivor Series by showing up on the other side, or he can be part of the babyface team and be back to babyface. But June. A start for everyone here, guys. June 23rd episode of Raw was the last episode of Raw that was not main evented by a member of the Vision.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're falling. And I think since then, it's 8 wrestlers have main evented Raw. 8 different wrestlers. So I think we are getting to the point where they're going to run out of matches, and they've got a lot more Raw episodes, obviously, to get to before Survivor Series, and they've already done everything. Like they've done everything in terms of what they want to do as a main event with the Vision. Other than doing a Survivor Series match, I guess.
Yeah,
which would be absolutely hilarious if they end up doing that. But yeah, like I think they have to open up obviously more matches to be able to happen, and so LA Knight as a tweener will at least give them multiple, I guess, because you could have LA Knight against Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, and then obviously put a tag partner with LA Knight that's not someone in the Vision or the Judgment Day. Then you have like a new tag match you can obviously set up.
True. I mean, I do think it's still a risky move for LA Knight, though, because of the kind of character he is. I think people could potentially misunderstand it, that he's attacked the hero Jey Uso, and therefore it kind of backlash. Even if they don't want to fully turn him heel, I think he could potentially lose some fans because of it. So,
but I think you'd lose those people anyway, based off of the fact that he hasn't won the world title. Like the thing that people want him to do, and have wanted since he faced long ago. I remember when he faced Roman again in Saudi.
Yeah,
Reigns, and that didn't happen back in 2023. So we're now almost 2 years removed from that, and the most this guy's done is win the US title a couple of times, defend it a couple of times, and then lose it. I mean, every time he gets on the PLE, he usually loses.
Yeah, and slightly into big feuds where he really is kind of your epitome of upper mid card, and he's nearly there.
Is he just going to be the one that got away? The one that's going to do it?
I hope not. I hope not, but as with a lot of these things in wrestling, it's about timing, isn't it? And at the moment, it doesn't seem like it's time. But hey, it looks like we both agree that the Vision are probably going to win this one. I don't think Jimmy and Jay should, even though I'm a big fan of the Usos. I just don't want them splitting up at least. Christopher agrees with us. He says the Vision wins. Cody Burris is in the house as well. Always good to see you, Cody. Says ready for ESPN era tomorrow as well. Again, if you're watching live, you're with us on Friday night, but you may be watching this on the replay on the build-up show as well. But yeah, the first show of the ESPN PLE era. That was a bit of a mouthful. Christopher also says, congratulations to Bayley, celebrating her 17-year anniversary of having her first match on September 19th, 2008. Yeah, big congratulations to Bayley. Of course, she's just recently come back on Monday Night Raw and as predicted, kind of in a interesting little storyline with Lyra Valkyria as well. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one. But yeah, it's good to see her back and good to see her celebrating an anniversary like that one as well. As Christopher says, congratulations to her.
Do you do that in your head where you still think like 18-year-olds are born like 1999 or something?
Yeah,
it's bonkers, isn't it? 17 years ago was 2008. Like,
yeah, very, very much so. The earlier this week was that was 2007. So 18-year anniversary of the first event that we put on as Rebellious Noise when we were doing our live concerts. The first of 18 years old. Rebellious Noise, technically speaking, could drink legally in this country. Could go to war, whatever else you could do at 18, essentially. Rebellious Noise is now an adult.
I think.
Yeah. But yeah, and thanks to everyone that stuck by us with Rebellious Noise, by the way. So if you're new around here, we are the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel, but there are several Rebellious Noise kind of sections as well. We got Rebellious Noise Taste for Food and Drink, Rebellious Noise Screen 1 for film and TV, Rebellious Noise Football channel, which is self-explanatory, and of course we've got the main channel and cover music over the years as well. So thanks to everyone that sticks with us, and hey, you're here for pro wrestling, so we'll get back to some pro wrestling chat as well. Hello people's game day. What do you think all thought about all the matches? Yeah, so again, at time of recording, it's not technically game day. We're still a day away, but if you're watching this on the replay, which you're not because you're commenting right now, then you will be on the right day. But yeah, Wrestlepalooza weekend, of course, it's a big weekend of pro wrestling, not just the WWE, of course, AEW. So it's going to be a fun weekend. And yeah, thanks for your comments there, Mima Shizi. Keep them coming and let us know what you think of the matches. We've already predicted John Cena versus Lesnar. Myself and Lucas both think it'll be a Lesnar victory and maybe a return for Gunther in this with a potential stare down. We also have predicted the Usos versus the Brons, as Lucas affectionately calls them, and we think the Usos will be losing this one because we might get an interference from LA Knight. Now, if that's the case, we see interference twice, or at least an appearance for someone outside the match twice in the first, well, not in the first two matches because we don't know where this match is going to be, but in at least two of the matches. And again, I do think this show is going to be hitting us with surprise after surprise, but how many of those surprises we get, we'll have to wait and see. Let's move into the next one, Lucas. It's a big one. This is a match that I think could be main event in a WrestleMania, if I'm honest. Look, we've seen it a few times, don't get me wrong, but still, these are two of the biggest names in the modern era of WWE. I think the result is a pretty straightforward one. I'd be massively surprised if McIntyre won. But I'm still looking forward to seeing what these guys do. I think the feud's been quite fun. Yeah. Of course, Cody Rhodes hasn't been around for much of it. But that's kind of played into the what, sorry?
Been filming Street Fighter, isn't he, in Australia?
Yeah, and he had a baby as well, so it's been a busy time for old Cody. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. It is disappointing to see Drew not win. This sounds like it's a foregone conclusion already. But I'd like him to get another shot and win in the future, but I don't know if he will. But is it as straightforward as I'm making it here, Lucas? Is it Drew McIntyre not winning and Cody Rhodes still the champion?
See, part of me thinks Drew's winning.
Whoa! Okay, mate. Win me round. Come on, give it to me, because I want that to be the case.
I just think they're putting a lot of focus on this being the first PLE, and they want to make a statement. They've got to change the belt.
Hey, it would be big. It'd be They've been big. Don't get me
I
wrong.
think that would be the ultimate big thing. And then factoring in the fact that they've announced Brock and Cena on first, which means this is most likely going on last.
Is it, or is it the tag match?
Gosh, that going on last. I mean, we've seen it previously, haven't we?
If this goes on last, something big is happening. Whether it's the title change or a return, something big is happening. But man, I'm loving it. I'm glad that you already got me 10 times more excited about this match being something like newsworthy already.
And also, I think we've got to break the tradition we're getting into where the belt only changes hands at SummerSlam and WrestleMania.
Yeah,
it's getting a bit ridiculous now. Like lots of people having full year title reigns, going from Mania to Mania, or or with SummerSlam in between kind of thing. Sometimes, so you've got to break the habit. At some point, it's got to just change hands. I get that it's not the 80s and 90s anymore, where you're going to change it on house shows and you have your random like 1 week title reigns and stuff like that. But I think we have got to get past the fact that it becomes too predictable, because already I've seen people on the comments of forum of Facebook and stuff being like, oh, Cody's holding it till Mania, could he gonna drop it to X person? It's like, no, why did we just de facto go to that?
I really hope it's not the case.
Months in between.
I think the first time around it was more likely. It was more shocking for Cody to lose, and he did still take a year. Don't get me wrong, but this time it's not as necessary. It's not a kind of he did that whole big story and he finally beat Roman just to lose it. He's lost it already. It's been a year, and he's just. I mean, you could argue he's only just recently got it back, but if there's a better story to tell, and I do think Drew 100% deserves to be in that position if they can afford to do so. So as far as timing goes. Christopher has brought up an interesting point in the comments, though. That could be the surprise, as Lucas says, Drew McIntyre winning it. Or it could be the story that it seems they've been wanting to tell for a while. Cody Rhodes wins, and after the match, Randy Orton turns on Cody Rhodes again. Another potential story here that will create a surprise, create some buzz. And I'm leaning towards that a little bit more as well now that that's been brought back up. Because, again, this is something for the last few months we've seen seed after seed after seed. Even quite recently, within this very storyline, Drew McIntyre basically said to Randy, look, he's not your mate and all this kind of stuff. And Drew Randy even kind of alluded to kind of agreeing. He was kind of like, this isn't about, we'll deal with that another time, what you've just said there.
Yeah.
And me coming out here isn't about Cody. This is about me and you, which I thought was really interesting for Randy. And there's been a lot of these little kind of nuanced performances I feel from Randy Orton lately, where he's kind of pulled a face or he's said something or he's changed his tone. I do think it's coming, and I do want it to happen. What are your thoughts on that? Is it something that could be happening this weekend?
It does seem very likely, but we are at the stage now where it feels like almost every match you're going to have some level of interference or someone coming back or a big surprise that's rumoured. And I guess that obviously some of these moments could obviously carry over to Monday Night Raw, so it could one where, or even to SmackDown later in the same week, or potentially, we don't get Randy doing the turn thing on the pay-per-view, but that happens on SmackDown, or we don't get Gunther on the pay-per-view, but we get Gunther on Raw. It's really tricky, isn't it? It's really tricky, this, because, and again, they have had that mould of obviously the first title defense, is a kind of hardest one where they usually do pick someone, and this is where back in the day, Vince would use a Dolph Ziggler, for example, because it's someone who hasn't just enough back credibility, but we all know he's not going to win. Like when it was Dolph Ziggler against Drew. Actually, Dolph was Drew's first title defense actually after he won it, wasn't it? He did the whole backlash and the Extreme Rule, the brilliant stipulation this, by the way, which they need to do in front of fans. But when they did Extreme Rules, but one-sided only, I thought was absolutely brilliant. And they obviously didn't do it in front of fans. They haven't done it. They haven't gone back since. But when Dolph Ziggler was in a world title match, you just knew he wasn't going to win. And that tradition is going to carry it over. And even back in the day, they give people like JBL, long after he lost the belt, obviously, as their kind of first, title.
Yeah, the Big Show,
Kane, utility players, and they call them essentially. And it's like Drew isn't that guy anymore. He's not that guy. And I think SmackDown does need a bit of a shake up. You've had whether you like it or not, like Cody Rhodes has basically been the de facto main event guy on SmackDown now for the best part of 2 years.
The thing is, as well, both these things could happen. Randy could
Mm.
cost Cody, and because that feud doesn't need the title.
No.
I just assumed it would have the title because Cody had the title for so long. But then at the same time, Randy has been saying in the past that he wanted that title again, and that he. But they had this. Well, it was King of the Ring, weren't it? Where they,
Yeah.
got to the final. So maybe it would take away a little bit. But you could say, look, I don't want you to have it if I can't have it, and then he's going to go after Drew in the future. That's his plan as a bad guy or something like that. So they could both happen. To be fair, what I don't want, and look, this is the danger in. We can't hype ourselves that. And we do this for nearly every PLE, don't get me wrong, but this one especially because, it's kind of not up there as Royal Rumble and SummerSlam and all that kind of stuff, but it's been promoted in a heavy way where it looks like we could get surprises, whereas those kind of lend themselves to surprises anyway. So I do think we're going to get some, but this is an example where our two options are a big title change that I'd be happy with, or a big heel turn with Randy Orton that I'd be happy with, and us getting neither and Cody just wins. And that's my kind of fear for this match here. If it goes on in the middle, I think they can get away with that because depending on what else they do on the show. If it goes on at the end, then Cody just sends them all home happy. And it sounds like I'm not a Cody fan. I do like Cody. I do think he's, deserving to be at the top of the card and all that kind of stuff, but we need to shake it up. I'm in agreement with you. So whether that's a Randy Orton heel turn on Cody, which I think is a feud that I've been dying to see it for ages, or Drew McIntyre getting what he deserves as far as being champ, not giving us either of those and carrying on with the status quo is a big fear of mine.
Because you got to start thinking, what is the vision for their closing shot of this? And I think they want to very much define whatever they want the ESPN era to be about. And I think that the ESPN era, they want to kind of advertise it as being a bit. Okay, they've been obsessed with the word edgier, being edgy, that kind of thing for the past few years. And I think that would be a way to kind of do it, of being like, we're not afraid to make these bold decisions anymore, and we're breaking the mold of certain things. And this is another reason why I want to champion the pre-show match coming back. I think that they really need to show that there's a difference between this era and the Peacock era. And at the moment, they're presenting 5 matches with nothing on a pre-show. And if we do just get the generic babyface, default win for Cody in the main event, it's like, well, we're not. You may as well stay on Peacock.
Something big is going to happen. Different. For sure. And this is like what a way to say new era but a new champion, or as you said earlier on, those lapsed fans that might go, oh, this is part of my package, I might watch it. Oh, Randy Orton's not back, but Randy Orton's like turn or something like that. He's a big part of the main scene. That would be a way to do that as well. Christopher says Randy Orton should be a heel. I do think it's going to happen. I think he's in that kind of period of his career where it might be a little bit tougher for people to boo him, but I think people will do it out of respect, if that makes sense. And it also says tonight on SmackDown, of course, this is live, your weekend kickoff show being recorded on Friday night before SmackDown airs. So it says SmackDown tonight. You've got Cody and Drew in their contract signing. I'm sure there'll be some good verbal back and forth between those two heavy hitters when it comes to promos as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do here. But again, generally speaking, I've enjoyed this feud. I think that selling that side of the commentary table, I thought was fantastic. It was a great way to write Cody out and also made Drew look great as well. So I've really enjoyed this feud. Let's move it on though to our next match to predict, and that is going to be one where we know we're going to get a new champion. And that's Iyo Sky versus Stephanie Vaquer, of course, for the women's world title. Now, which woman, there we go, comes away with the title is a little bit harder to predict, Lucas. I mean, you could go with Iyo Sky because she was champ already, and that means, well, it's a safe bet, which is back where we were, but it also means we're back where we were. Or you could go Stephanie Vaquer, but then you could also argue, well, it seems like they were pushing Julia and they only pushed her to US gold, and now they've forgotten all about her. Are they really going to then push Stephanie even higher? I don't know, but I think they see a lot in Stephanie. I think that she will become champion in some stage. But then there's also this storyline going on with Iyo Sky and the Kabuki Warriors as well. So I really, really am finding this one hard to predict. If I would prefer, even though I really enjoy Io's work and I really am looking forward to the feud that is inevitably going to come with Asuka, I would prefer if it was Stephanie Vaquer. But at the same time, I guess the argument could be that a more established wrestler should stabilize the top tier, because I think at the moment you've got Tiffany on one side, and it may change over to Jade, who's another kind of up and comer, or maybe Nia, but probably not. And then when you go down a level, which I think this is fantastic, by the way, having Becky IC champ is something I've been wanting for a while, because it brings that title up. At the moment, the mid-card title, that mid-card title looks more important than both women's titles on the top tier, because they've given it to someone who is very deserving in Naomi, a former world champion herself, but someone who is usually around that mid to upper mid-card to upper mid-card to headline acts kind of level. And then on the other side, you've got these kind of new acts that have only just broken into the women's main event as well. So maybe for stability, it's better to give it to Iyo rather than give it to a new star, because especially on the same brand, you know, if you've got future Hall of Famer Becky Lynch as the IC champ, and this woman who was only just in NXT a little while ago, and again, this is not taking anything away from Stephanie Vaquer, perfectly fantastic performer herself, could become a Hall of Famer in the future, don't get me wrong, but that's not where we're at the moment. I think there is a danger of perception of the titles being switched a little bit too heavily. So what are your thoughts on this one, and how kind of either outcome could kind of, you know, position that title going forward?
I said this last week, I think. I do genuinely believe this, that the Raw women's kind of feuds are better than the men's feuds by far. And I think there's a lot of stuff they're doing with the Iyo Sky, Asuka, Kyrie, all that kind of stuff. And obviously, we've mentioned about the women's IC championship, and obviously now that going into a match which we're going to discuss a bit later on, even into like a main, you know, kind of one of the main events, really, you could argue.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't end up being on last, it is one of the main matches of the show. But yeah, it does feel like there's nothing for Stephanie afterwards is the worry here. And they really loaded it with the fact that obviously we've forgotten to mention this is Rhea Ripley. She has basically kind of said she wants next. So is Asuka.
Crown Jewel not long away as well, as you say.
I'm sorry?
Crown Jewel, as you say, not long away either.
So you'd have to imagine that there's already kind of pre-built feuds and kind of matches coming off of an Iyo Sky win here, where there isn't really much certainty of what Stephanie Vaquer would do. So, but you could argue also that, you know, this Asuka, Kyrie, Iyo, Rhea stuff maybe doesn't need the championship. That could be something which happens kind of in the background, and Stephanie goes on and does whatever. But it does feel a bit like she's been a bit of an afterthought since winning that Battle Royal. You know, and it does beg the question, like, in my opinion, I don't think she would have beaten Naomi. I
was just going to ask you that, and then to follow up, do you think she would have eventually won the feud? Would it have gone 2-3 pay-per-views and she would have won it? Because I think my big reason why I don't think she would have won it is because Naomi wouldn't have been ready to drop it. I don't think booking-wise that would have made any sense. But do you think eventually she would have dropped it to Stephanie? In which case, we might be about a month away from where that could have happened anyway.
No.
I think that's our answer then.
I think that they would have done. I think that they would have done her Naomi winning at Clash in Paris. Most likely, the belt wouldn't have been defended at Wrestlepalooza. I believe it's only really being on Wrestlepalooza because it was promised to be on Clash, and it obviously not. It wasn't able to be, so it got moved to this one. I then think that they would have done Naomi and Rhea in Australia, and that one would have been a case if Naomi has flopped as champion, she drops it to Rhea. But if she hasn't flopped, and she hadn't flopped, let's be real, she did a very, very good job. I think she would have retained, and then potentially, because she was doing the whole like calling everyone heifers and hating on the women's locker room, they'd have used that to link into the Women's Survivor Series War Games match build of obviously Naomi and the non-heifers facing the heifers. And then they would have rode that out pretty much through to the Rumble. And then if they didn't want to change the belt before going into WrestleMania, they would have kept on Naomi through to WrestleMania, I believe.
Wow, that's a long. I mean, I can see it though. You know, obviously.
But the thing is, it's long, but you're talking realistically, because of how they have the calendar now. It only needs 2 feuds.
Yeah,
so you would have needed 1 feud post Clash, and they could have just revisited Stephanie. They wanted to have her lose to Stephanie, lose again, and then obviously you add Rhea to it at her hometown thing. Then you add a Survivor Series, and you really only got to get to December where you've got to find her a heifer. I love that word. Just to quote, I'm just quoting from what Naomi says. It's not what I believe on the roster. But yeah, you would have had to just find her a woman just to fight in December.
Yeah,
and that could have just been someone like an Natalia. Someone who utility player who just knows not to win the belt, but it's enough of a threat to kind of be like, okay, they've been on TV before, so we can get a good couple of TV matches, and then we can build that to the Rumble. So realistically, and this is why I guess it does fall into the territory with even the other belts, of like people will just keep them to Mania because there's not anything really in between. Like now, like after we get past Crown Jewel, you're setting up a multi-person match in Survivor Series, another multi-person match in the Rumble, and then another multi-person match in the Chamber.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you don't need like main one-on-one feuds or anything like that. It is a shame when you put it like that. I mean, I really could picture Rhea versus Naomi. It's not just a shame for Naomi, it's a shame for Rhea because I do think they'll use her. She'll be in a big match, but at the moment, it might even be her versus Iyo, babyface versus babyface for Asuka to cost Iyo.
I want to see a multi-woman match. I know it sounds weird.
Yeah.
Be saying, but I thought there's a lot of women that deserve an opportunity. Like I watched yesterday, Survivor Series 2001, and look. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't the best women's match that happened, but obviously it was a 6-pack challenge. Trish Stratus, Molly Holly, Jazz, I forget what's in the match now. 3 other people, but it was just a case. It was nice just to see like a variety of women wrestling.
Yeah.
You
don't get as much in the women's roster. It feels.
No,
I mean, we've had a few big triple. Yeah, exactly.
Really
some great ones.
There's some really good ones this year. And they both actually involved Iyo Sky actually, but yeah, we don't get like, someone mentioned that someone else who I think needs to get who I definitely think needs to get more kind of TV time is Ivy Nile, for example. Like and this is where these kind of matches can be used to help someone shine, and I think that they're going to keep doing singles feuds. You're not going to get people on TV enough,
Yeah, true. Big old roster. I mean,
you got 2 girls in the Judgment Day. Raquel Rodriguez, who I think is really improved, passing of 6 months. Roxanne Perez, as who I bloody love, and people who I all think need just deserve like a shot,
Yeah.
But yeah, like I do think that because we're going to get Rhea against Iyo and Rhea against Asuka and Rhea against anyone basically at Crown Jewel, I think that Iyo Sky will be the victor here. I do think Stephanie's time will come.
Yeah.
And it should come, definitely. She's definitely... I think that they're still doing enough with her to where they positioned her as like enough of a threat, though. So I don't think that this is it.
Yeah, I hope so. I think she has been well positioned overall, and maybe this is just a step too far at this point, And that's not saying she don't deserve it. She's not a great wrestler or anything like that. It's just that, again, it comes down to timing. If she won it, it'd feel like an actual title win. Like I say, we're gonna get a new champion either way, but because Iyo's won it before and she was only champion a little while back, it would kind of feel like we're back to square one in a way. And again, no disrespect to Iyo, and I think they've got a cool story there about to tell with her either way, but Stephanie would actually feel like, oh wow, someone won the title, rather than like Iyo would feel like a retention in a weird way. But we'll see where we go with that. I think I'm going to go with you though, Lucas. I think it probably will be Iyo Sky.
I think as well though, this match, I'm going to say it. I think as long as they stick away from too many shenanigans, which I believe they will do, just based on the fact that we have mentioned shenanigans for at least 2 of the others. I do think this could probably be the best wrestling match on the show.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the one they had on Raw when Stephanie came onto the roster was amazing. So to put this on a PLE, and a big PLE at that, we've been talking about how this is a big kind of line in the sand really for WWE and their new partnership with ESPN as well. So yeah, I'm with you. Could potentially be match of the night.
Genuinely, Iyo Sky is the best wrestler of the year. Like,
do you think? Yeah.
Yeah. I think
she's had some great matches when you put it like that.
She has not had a flop. She's not had one that She's not had one.
Yeah.
Like she's really hit.
And she's over as well. Like
Yeah.
she's over.
She
Like
got the finger pointing thing over.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
There's
true.
something she randomly decided to do, and it gets over. And
Yeah,
like I genuinely think as well that we're going to see a lot more unpack with this Asuka, Kairi Sane kind of thing. And again, it's just a good way of using these characters and getting them on TV, and hopefully bolstering that main Raw Women's title scene. Because there's a lot of women. Because now their job, essentially, as far as I'm concerned, is to ensure that they build up enough people, enough heifers, so that when Naomi does come back, the people for her to go into feuds and rivalries with. Because as far as I'm concerned, that Naomi return is going to hit different.
yeah.
So like what? Probably another year and a half or so away.
And I think they will be committed to the character as well, because even the way she went out was, she played into, like I'm a bad guys get pregnant too, basically, which I thought was really, they let her soak up the positive stuff from the fans, but then she turned on. I thought it was fantastic. But looking forward to seeing her return. But at the moment, looks like we have a possible match of the night candidate on our hands when it comes to the women's world title either way. So looking forward to seeing where we go with that one. Now, the last of the matches, as time of recording, is with us at least. The announced ones, I should say, is, of course, one of the big ones. You mentioned it a moment ago. Even if it doesn't go on last, it will be seen as one of the main events. And it's a huge match in that. So we got Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins, of course, husband and wife duo, going up against another husband and wife duo. Some thought the day would never come. It is the return of AJ Lee with her husband, CM Punk, in a mixed tag match. Now, I'm really looking forward to this, because I'm really looking forward to seeing AJ Lee back in the ring and just seeing her and Punk get that moment together. I'm looking forward to the chemistry that Becky and AJ, I think, will have together, and a payoff to what I think has been a fun little feud. Look, it was something that looked obvious the last time we did a watch along. It was the one where they hinted at AJ Lee coming back, and I think everything since then has been fantastic. I'd love to get your thoughts on the AJ Lee return overall and where we are with the storyline. We'll get to predicting the match itself in just a little bit, but what have you thought about the kind of presentation of the four of these? I think it's been perfect. I think there are a few things that I was a little bit kind of concerned about on Monday Night Raw, where Becky walked out of the ring, and then I started to think, hold on, are they doing what? Yes, they are. Becky, is a little bit of a ruse, because it seemed a little bit strange that she would do that, and then they really amped it up, and I thought, oh no, maybe it's not that. And then, of course, what I'm referring to is the fact that they end up pulling a fast one on Punk and AJ Lee, and I think it make both sides of this feud look great. The heels look like great heels, the baby faces look like great baby faces, and all in all, we're getting a return for someone that I think seriously deserves to get her flowers. And man, I'm just really looking forward to this. So yeah, thoughts on the feud so far, mate?
Yeah, no, I think it's been good. Obviously, this Rollins and Punk feud has been going on quite some time now. You could argue, really, it started the night that Punk returned at Survivor Series 23.
But what a new dimension!
But I think, yeah, it's been kind of dribbed and drabbed, and they've had everything with it's been good is a thing. Like I think when something going long isn't necessarily a problem, always. But I think that this has been done quite well. I think her return was done very well. I get that. Oh, sorry.
You're right there, mate.
Yeah. Basically, my iPad's on charge, isn't it? And it just has to be in a certain position, otherwise it messes up. But yeah, I think the return was done very well. I know, obviously, a lot of talk about predictability in wrestling.
Yeah.
But it's one of those where it's like, surely you'd rather have it be predictable but be good, rather than be like unpredictable and bad.
Yeah. You know what? I will say the only thing I didn't like was CM Punk saying her name before she came out.
Same.
It's the only thing I didn't like. I know it was obvious. And he kind of alluded to it a little bit already, but other than that, I think the pop, like, I genuinely got emotional seeing her come out, like, because I think it is so well deserved. And of course, since then, there's an added layer of mental health struggles and stuff like that as well. And it's a great kind of story essentially for that as well. But Yeah, just seeing them together, just seeing the twinkle in Punk's eye as he watches his wife get a moment that he must have felt for so long. It would be lovely to see again, you know. So, of course, there's been rumors since he come back, as you say. It's been a story since he come back, him and Seth, and it's been rumors ever since that AJ Lee would return. So, I think it's a really clever way to interweave this, and it's interesting as well that it doesn't look like a one and done, man. She signed a contract, and
Yes, she signed a contract. She got the Triple H photo.
her going up against Becky for the IC title looks like it could be something we see in the near
that's
future as well. So,
particularly with obviously the fact they've seemed to have moved Bailey into a feud with obviously Lyra Valkyria,
yeah,
which will be its own separate thing and not for a championship, which again is good. Like the depth,
fantastic, yeah.
The depth this roster has for the women is so good.
It's what we've been asking for years, man. For years.
If I'm Bruce Pritchard, I'm Triple H, and whatever, I'm looking at the Raws going forward. I think we've got to start. We've got to say, okay, look, let's just pause the Vision being the main event every week for now. We've had enough of that. Let's just give the we got such a depth with this women's roster at the moment. We discussed previously the whole Iyo Sky, Asuka stuff. Then obviously whoever wins the championship will have that against. So it's most likely Rhea Ripley. Still got Bailey and Lyra Valkyria, bubbling under. Underneath obviously the two championship pictures. Then to mention we've got obviously two girls on the Judgment Day, Roxanne and Raquel, who can go after the women's tag belts. You're most likely going to have some NXT call-ups coming soon.
Eventually to return to Liv Morgan as well.
Liv Morgan's return, Naomi, again, that's much further down the line, but Naomi's return. Like, you've got, so many things you can focus and spotlight on, just aren't the Vision. And I guess Becky Lynch is one of them, I guess. Becky Lynch will be a member, part of it, but yeah, I just think, we're looking at 3 months down the line, we need to break this streak of the Vision being the main event of, every single episode, and I think the women there's lots of them now that can go into that slot. Personally, I feel that if this wasn't the whole ESPN / this kind of big thing of having a big moment, I personally believe they probably would have had Iyo and Stephanie on last on this show. Because it's a vacant title. It's a big enough match to go on last. But I think obviously having what they want to do, also on the card, like the Drew stuff, the Randy Orton stuff, and potentially Gunther and all that kind of stuff kind of coming up. It's the reason why it's not. But yeah, I just think that in terms of this tag, this whole presentation of them is really good though. In terms of AJ Lee coming back, it was interesting that she came back on SmackDown, even though she's a Raw superstar.
It's just location, wasn't it?
Yeah, I get
it. It worked though. I think it worked.
It's location plus the fact that I don't think they could have held it in any longer without basically just announcing it. Being forced to it, because we kind of all knew that's where it was going, and then
and we got to remember as well, this PLE was originally just put out there as September 20th. Brock versus John Cena, counter in AEW. So that was, Brock's the returnee and all that kind of stuff as well. But we'd already seen that. And there are, stories surrounding that feud in itself. Whereas this is a genuine, surprise return. This is kind of one of, or if not the biggest hook for this show, because it is, again, it's the first time we're going to see a wrestle in 10 years. It's a big return that people clamored for a long, long time now as well. It's a big position to be in as far as that goes as well. So, I mean, look, I do think she would have been coming back at some point anyway. This whole period, again, we've been looking at, is it Rumble? Is it Evolution? Is it WrestleMania? I never thought it'd be Wrestlepalooza. If you told me that even just a few months ago, I'd be like, you what? But this is where it is. And the fact that they thought, you know what? That's the surprise. That's the one we want to try and draw eyes away from the other company. I think it says a lot about what they see for AJ Lee in a kind of, future as well. So I think things are looking good for this feud.
Yeah, and I think that considering that Punk's 2025 so far has gone, lost the Rumble, lost the Chamber, lost at WrestleMania, lost the Night of Champions. He did win at SummerSlam, then lost to a Cash. Clash. I think this will.
It's got to get something.
And I think we have to see AJ and CM Punk defeat Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. That will then obviously enable Becky Lynch to go irate and I think she does her best when she's kind of on the back foot in a weird way. Becky. I'm kind of biased with this. I just finished her book actually.
Oh yeah,
Becky Lynch's audio book, and So I'm kind of, I've got that kind of foresight now, that kind of insight now. But I think, yeah, she admits it as well, that she kind of works best as a character when she's kind of either looking stupid or kind of, on the back foot. She has something to have a bee in her bonnet about. I think, her losing this tag gives her that bee in the bonnet, which then will enable really good promos and stuff to happen against AJ Lee. And I think it's just the right thing. And I guess we have brushed off a couple of other moments. There's a lot of feel good moments that can happen on this show, and potentially if they were booked on separate shows, they'd all be fine. It's like, Cody winning is not a problem. I don't care. Like Usos returning and then winning, like, again, not a problem, but not for this show. In my opinion.
Yeah.
The nice, new champion of technically Vaquer, like getting a moment. Again, that's also good, but for me, like, not on this show. But one that I think definitely has to happen. I think that we need to see AJ Lee and CM Punk win. This match. I think that's just it's just like a nice moment that we don't get to see like enough of him in WWE nowadays. They used to do them quite a lot, maybe a bit too much, you could argue. But now at the stage where we just don't, because we even like going into like the hometown thing. It's like with the hometown thing used to be like a guaranteed win. Now it's like pretty much a guaranteed way how you're going to lose. Like they will find a way, to make the hometown person lose, and just increasingly ridiculous and annoying ways,
or not appear sometimes,
which
is even more frustrating. I do think that the risk is that they've had their big moment. The return was their big moment, and they've been on top of this feud for the most part until the last thing we saw on Monday Night Raw between these four. They've basically been on top in this feud. So I think there could be an argument that Becky and Seth need to look strong. But I think I'm with you. I think Punk needs to look strong because he hasn't won much this year. And AJ Lee needs to look strong coming back. And Becky, kind of, as you say, being on the back foot. And that typical heel thing of like, I'm so angry, I'm going to put my title on the line, weird thing, which I think is the way we're going to go with it as well. And then whether or not Seth and Punk go off to do separate things and then bring their feud back up in time for, I don't know, WrestleMania season, we'll have to wait and see as well. But yeah, looking forward to this one. Ultimately, though, if we went for a prediction, I'm going with CM Punk, AJ Lee. It sounds like you're doing the same.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to a few more of these comments before we do wrap up on the weekend kickoff show. Again, if you're watching live on Friday night, we appreciate you. Keep your comments coming. We appreciate all of those as well. If you're watching on demand, fire away in the comment section, and we'll try and get back to you offline as well. And we'll be having this as a replay on our build-up show. Of course, if you're new around here on the night of a PLE, what we do is get you hyped up and in the mood for the PLE, as well as ourselves. And myself and Lucas have done a good job of that, I feel, this Friday night as well, because I'm really excited for Wrestlepalooza now, let alone how I'm going to feel come Saturday and the build-up show. Let's get to these comments, though. As I say, Christopher says, I have Iyo Sky because it's too soon for Stephanie Vaquer to win the Women's World Championship. Again, a bit similar to what myself and Lucas was saying earlier on. That's not about talent or anything like that, but potentially, could get lost in the shuffle, which is a weird thing to say about a world title win. AJ Lee and CM Punk wins, and AJ pins or submits Becky Lynch. I think that's an interesting way to go around it, especially the submission angle. That definitely could be where we get a jealous and irate Becky Lynch coming out of it. And also said, I've not read AJ or Becky Lynch's books, and by the sounds of it, Lucas can recommend Becky Lynch's one. Have you read AJ Lee's book?
I've not read AJ Lee's one. In terms of submission, though, Becky Lynch talks about submissions quite a lot in her book, and I said that's, to her, it's always her kind of tale of like wanting to really get someone else over. And one of the stories she tells in her book is obviously about the original finish that was pitched for the Women's Triple Threat match was Ronda Rousey's tapping out.
Yeah.
And originally they had it that Ronda would like be about to tap, and then Becky would roll up Charlotte, I think.
Right.
Plan. Or there'd be a tap out and there'd be a tap out and the ref wouldn't see it, kind of thing. But basically Ronda shut it down and said that there's no way she could tap, and Mum wouldn't like basically let her tap. Like she wouldn't be able to, Mum wouldn't live with it. And it changed. But Becky Lynch had actually said multiple times in her book that that was always her way of like showing that was a way to get someone over. And I think she said what she said. I think she did say she is the woman who has submitted the most on pay-per-view.
Oh yeah, okay.
Kind of made that statement at one point.
Wow.
So it is kind of her thing.
Mm.
And again, it shows that fact that when she said it was something almost. I don't remember. I don't know whether it was definitely still on pay-per-views, like or in one of I think it was title matches.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I was like thinking the fact that obviously I couldn't really, I can pinpoint a couple of times she's tapped out, but not like it's not to the point of like, oh, she's always tapping out. Do you know what I mean? And the fact that she's still a main eventer in terms of she's a main eventer. The women and the men are all equal now in this company.
Yeah.
It shows it hasn't really affected her that much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if that stat it was her own stat, like it is true. But yeah, obviously AJ has got the Black Widow submission, so I'm seeing Christopher's other comment just further down. And obviously Punk has the Anaconda device.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those where no one's really going to be at a loss here if they were to.
Even if both of them tapped at the same time. Yeah. Cool visual.
Which would be quite cool.
Yeah.
Because again, this is setting ticking a lot of firsts, and they like this whole, the whole records and that kind of stuff. Like, because it's the first mixed tag they've had in ages. First one, obviously, on ESPN. It's kind of a continuation of that feud. You're getting two champions in one side. Like there's a lot that can come from this. And again, I guess it is just obviously delaying the inevitable Punk and Rollins match again. But I do think that again, this will link into Survivor Series build, which will obviously again delay a one-on-one between Rollins and Punk most likely.
Yeah. As you say, it's not a bad thing sometimes that these feuds are slow burning and kind of dragged out, because I think when they do it well, they really pull it off. And I think Punk's involved in another example of that, the Drew McIntyre feud. I think we all look back on with great fondness as well. So it just shows it can work, and it's worked quite well so far for CM Punk in his WWE return. But that is it for your weekend kickoff, guys. I really hope you've enjoyed the show. Let us know what you think will happen at Wrestlepalooza and what match you're looking forward to the most in the comments below if you are watching on demand as well. We really do appreciate all your comments, and we hope to see you on the build-up show as well. If you're watching the build-up and seeing this as a replay, then thank you very much for tuning in for that as well. The idea of the build-up show is to get you as close to the show itself and take you there safely and comfortably and get you in the mood for the Big Peely. The Big Peely this weekend, of course, is Wrestlepalooza. Again, something I didn't expect to hear myself saying just a few months back. The old ECW IP is back with no ECW nod as far as stipulation or anything like that. So maybe we'll get something on the show, maybe a Paul Heyman appearance or something like that could make up for it. But whether or not we get that, I'm sure it's going to be a fun show either way, with plenty of surprises being rumoured. It's just a matter of how many, or do we get any of them, essentially? Let's wait and see. Oh, I think I cut out a little bit there. Any final thoughts before we get out of the weekend kickoff show, Lucas?
No, because we're at the risk now of sounding silly, because obviously SmackDown's about to air and we have no idea what they're going to have in store for us. And so it's like right now we can predict wherever we want to predict, but wherever we want to say. But yeah, look, I'm looking forward to Wrestlepalooza, and it's not. I think having newness is always good, but I would like to see some sort of stability come into the schedule eventually.
Yeah.
But I guess it is just Triple H putting his own stamp, or TKO more precisely again.
True.
Putting their own stamp onto things. And I guess it does also keep things guessing, because like you say, 3 months ago, I never would have imagined of saying the word Wrestlepalooza, let alone having to do, multiple videos and podcasts and group chats and all that kind of stuff regarding this. And it does seem like they're wanting to start something big, and I guess we have to commend the company for trying to do that. It's very hard to get a new something over, but don't forget, Money in the Bank was once a new rookie idea that didn't exist, and now obviously, in my opinion, maybe it does need to take a little break, but it definitely is one of those big things, and things that happen in the calendar, over the WWE year. Same with obviously King of the Ring. It's had multiple times obviously been brought back. Obviously this time with obviously having the championship shot at SummerSlam at stake, like it's been much better received, this time round.
Yeah.
So we have got to give these things a shot. Because who knows, we could be 3-4 years from now talking about Wrestlepalooza as one of the big, one of the big five. Maybe they have big six main events potentially.
Yeah.
Main shows they have throughout the year. So everything has to start somewhere, doesn't it? And it could be with Wrestlepalooza, tomorrow night, Saturday 20th of September 2025, where we witness history. Because again, at one point, WrestleMania, was just a show that was going to happen.
Yeah. Or it could go the other way, and this is the only Wrestlepalooza WWE promote. We'll have to wait and see. We've seen that sort of thing happen before as well. But as you say, we've got to commend them for trying something different here and getting the wrestling world alight with this kind of buzz and hype surrounding it as well, without losing sight of the fact that this is all done to spite AEW, which is only really a positive for WWE and AEW / wrestling fans in general, really, because we get to see these incredible shows, of which I'm sure AEW are going to have a great show this weekend as well. So yeah, a lot to look forward to in the world of pro wrestling. It seems that every time we come on here for these major weekends, it just gets bigger and bigger. So really, really appreciate the companies for kind of doing that. So let's see where we go at the end of Wrestlepalooza. But for now, I've been Scott, he's been Lucas, and this has been your Wrestlepalooza Weekend Kickoff show. And we'll see you on the next one.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.